I'm going to show you something that you missed in the first movie and the second movie. But the reason that you missed this change in the second movie is because you didn't know that this line was in the original movie. In the first movie, when we were introduced to Mr., the voiceover said,
His wife dead. She was killed by her boyfriend coming home from church.
read that line and think about it. His wife was what? By who? That should call for a pause. Now, I'll get to how they cleaned up that line in the new movie, but how was it that Mr., the cinematic king of backhand slaps, had a wife that was cheating on him with another man that she was so entangled with to the point to where she got control alt deleted by the man who she was cheating on Mr. with? That makes you question whether or not all those kids were even his. But his backstory gets worse. There was mention in the first movie that Suge Avery's kids were possibly his.
All our children's got different daddies.
Suge Avery's children got the same daddy. I can vouch
You
for
can
that.
vouch for nothing.
This was when his dad pointed out that Suge Avery raised the population of Hartwell County a new high, and that Mr. he was just one of the roosters. But think about it. He dealt with women that disrespected him, cheated on him, and had children on him by other men. Meanwhile, if Celie gave the most subtle back talk, it resulted in back slaps. There seems to be a weak, passive, pushover pass in this man's history where he let women walk all over him. I'm seeing a Marvel origin story where he went from being, as Suge Avery called him, Albert, to eventually becoming Mr. That's his supervillain name. Therefore, the first time that he slapped Celie when she talked back to him, he probably was thinking, no, I can't let this happen again. This was how it all started with the other ones. Mr. needs a prequel. That's all I'm getting at. Would you watch a Mr. prequel? I certainly would. I would. Now, the movie tried to address this in two different ways, but before I get into that, I would be remiss if I didn't point out that a lot of these ideas came from Game Changer 00100, who I recently collaborated with on this. He's doing a full in-depth character breakdown series. I highly recommend it. The links will be in the comments section and the description. Now, the movie attempted in two different ways to explain this. The second way was the more interesting attempt, but the first way that they tried to explain it is just by simply saying he didn't care that his wife had a boyfriend because he was in love with Suge Avery. That's not a satisfying answer to a seemingly out of character backstory. Like, would he let Celie go sleep with someone else just because he's in love with Suge Avery? No, of course not. This line needed proper explanation. As a result of that, the second attempt that the new movie made was complex and rooted at the core of what this movie was really about. A female character in the movie said that Mr. is just another way of saying master. You just replace one letter. And it's a lot of misters out there. He not the only one. She practically broke the fourth wall, looked at the camera, and said that to the audience. Which should be really no surprise because the author of the book, Alice Walker, is quoted in writing saying that black men pretty much treated black women no different than the slave master. And she meant that black men treated black women like that during slavery and after slavery, despite the fact that there was never a time in history where black men oppressed black women. She looked at that fact and said, well, I guess I'll create a time when black men oppressed black women. And she created it in the form of land-owning, wealthy for the time black men in 1909, not too long after slavery, running their farms, or dare I say, their plantations, where they bought, bred, sold, traded, and oppressed young black girls, just like you know who. Oh, and here's an image of her husband, by the way. Just do with that information what you will. The message in the movie is that black women only gain true freedom post-slavery when they escape from their true oppressor, master, or Mr. Master, Mr. Tomato, you get the point. Even when Celie found the courage to leave Mr. and go with Suge Avery, Squeak got up and left with them too. Nobody ever criticized or questioned that. She left Harpo, who never hit her or did anything overtly wrong to her. He was a successful land-owning businessman who took good care of her. He was imperfect, but genuinely kind-hearted. Her leaving him was just accepted under the same thought process when people have the conversation of, well, this slave master was brutal, but this slave master wasn't. Well, he's still a slave master. There's no such thing as a good slave master or mister or man or specifically black man. So just escape the plantation when you get a chance. So the overlooked line in this movie, when examined properly, either creates a complex backstory worthy of a prequel or just a poorly written out of character backstory for the villain. Ask yourself this question. Did the crowd literally laugh and cheer in the movie when Sophia disrespected Harpo and tells him, here, you take the baby and go make some tea for me and Celie? When she gets the tea, she throws it in the swamp because he didn't make it hot enough. She left bumps and bruises on his face, and in this movie, the one time that he fought back, she up and left, as if a man is only worth keeping around if he's being ruled over by a woman. And we know that that's true in this world that Alice Walker created, because the only woman who got good outcomes with men was the juke joint Jezebel, who rebelled against her preacher father, turns the supervillain Mister back into Albert, his weaker alter ego who lets women disrespect him, cheat on him, and go have babies on him by other men, while still having a whole town of men drooling over her at the juke joint. And speaking of that juke joint, in this remake, when Harpo and the crew were building the juke joint, Sophia and a group of women showed up and said, "Step aside, boys, we got it from here." And a bunch of women went to work with nails and hammers. Like, yeah, Harpo's juke joint was built by a team of women. What else stood out was weird stuff like Fantasia playing Celie was pretty much the same size in this movie as Oprah was playing Miss Sophia in 1985. There's been some evolution of female bodies in what's perceived as fat, apparently, which created somewhat of a continuity era with Fantasia's BBL under dirty 1925 clothes. It just looked out of place, like the Starbucks cup that the internet caught on the table in an episode of Game of Thrones. It just wasn't right. They said that that was Taraji P. Henson actually singing. I'm not buying it because we heard her sing "It's Hard Out Here for a Pimp" a cappella in Hustle and Flow. And yeah, I'm just gonna go with my theory that they used a voiceover actor when she was singing Suge Avery's parts. That's just what I believe. They also turned up the volume on the lesbian scenes that were in the book, but were not quite accepted in the 1985 movies, but they are accepted today. However, some of the scenes that they made worse were the scenes with Mr. and Nettie, because in the remake, he didn't approach her outside when she was on her way to school. He tiptoed into her room at night while she was sleeping. When she fought him off, he used a shotgun to run her off the land. Notice how they can rework the lesbian scenes to make them fit today's audiences and agendas, but we're going to just keep all the undertones and overtones of misandry firmly in place. I guess they know their audience. Tap the box to see my unique breakdown of the whole Simone Biles controversy.